Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar, Beyond VMware, Smarter Strategies for Modernization. I'm John. I get to work with partners here at PMsquare, one of which you're going to hear from today, one of my very favorite partners. And I'm really excited about this webinar. This has been a long time coming and really timely given where we are in the market. Today, we're going to unpack what happens next after VMware, which if any of you have checked your renewal bills, will be a day you're very excited for. We're going to explore how we got here, strategies for how we get out of this mess, and PMsquare's approach to doing all this. Running the show today, I'm joined by my colleague, Chris. Chris leads our cloud practice here at PMsquare and has a lot of experience in this domain. And also by our partner and good friend, Mark Fermin. Mark is technical enablement engineer at Ingram and has a heck of a lot of experience in the topics we're talking about today. Just a quick note to all of you, this session is recorded, so we'll share any materials afterwards. And you can also ask questions along the way if you like. With that, let's get started. Chris, I'll kick it to you, and you and Mark, let's get going.
Sure, thanks, John. Yeah, welcome everyone. Glad you're taking a little time out of your day and lunch hour to join us for this. So I just want to go over a quick agenda, and then we'll just dive into the meat of the content. So yeah, as John said, what we're focusing here is options for migrating off VMware, looking at the recent changes and timelines of what this market has looked like over last year, what the drivers for those changes are, and then looking at options. I know as I've been talking with the client, I'm sure Mark has, that's the big question. Everyone is aware of the problem, but no one really knows how to get out of the problem. And so that's what we're gonna try to help uncover today and give some guidance on what that looks like. So real quick, for those that don't know who PMsquare is, so we are, like I say, we're a data first cloud company. You see on the left a number of areas where we consult on and help our clients with, where it's just cloud and data AI advisory, solution implementation, managed services, FinOps, and then long-term resource placement. And through all of these types of engagement, we're always helping customers evaluate and assess infrastructure, which is why we have a unique lens, I think, in looking at the current landscape within VMware. A little more about what we do. So broad ranging skill set across a number of different domains, but really all tie back to data in some way, whether it's business level analytics, FinOps information on your infrastructure spend, cloud operations, and more and more moving into the AI and automation space. And you can see here we're a global company, really can cover the globe. So wherever our clients are, whatever kind of support they're looking to get, we're able to meet that. Okay, so jumping into it, VMware, the shift and key changes happening today. So Mark, you want to take away and go through some of the changes we've seen?
Yeah. So, and recognizing that a lot of the folks in the audience here may have a various range of understanding and kind of varying degree of kind of where we are on things. So if we go back almost a couple of years now, we all know that Broadcom acquired VMware. If you have any prior history with Broadcom as a company, we've kind of recognized if you were a Symantec customer, a CA customer, you may kind of recognize the pattern that we're going through again today with VMware, where Broadcom kind of acts more as a kind of a PE company or holding company for tech as opposed to an actual technology company. But what we've seen and how we've seen this evolve as this whole evolution has happened is basically, and we saw this again with Symantec and CA. As Broadcom acquired VMware, there's that focus on, for Broadcom and VMware, their top 2,000 customers, right? Their highest install base, most advanced customers. These are going to be their strategic tier, and then everybody else is basically parceled off to the channel. And so there was a ton of customers in this, that could have been considered in the strategic or enterprise tier that were able to buy direct from VMware previously. That's no longer the case, right? So now they're having to come out and they find their renewals are being handled by partner possibly like PMsquare, or they maybe didn't have a partner of record because they were purchasing direct, and now they're going to go find somebody. So you kind of see this pattern of disruption emerging, both on the partner side and of course on the customer side as well. The policy changes we've seen already, a significant change in how products were bundled, right? That huge reduction in SKUs, down to a handful from the thousands that they had before, and the strategy they chose was to go with product bundling, right? So if you were a customer that only needed 1 or 2 SKUs, now you're forced to buy probably 3 or 4 at a minimum, and there's only that gives you a lot less choice as to what you're going to deploy. It gives you a lot less flexibility in terms of cost as well, because the prices all did increase. They increased the licensing metric from per CPU to per core, and that was a little while back, but it's nonetheless had a significant impact on renewals that have come up in the last 3 years, and especially now with the product bundles, people are seeing astronomical price increases at renewal time, coming off of a perpetual license and onto what is only offered now as a subscription license. We talk about the commercial structures, and that kind of goes back to how Broadcom is handling everything, with taking its top 2,000 customers direct. Everybody else is kind of left to the wayside, and so partners are kind of navigating this as well. It seems as though you could almost imply that there's a lot less focus from Broadcom VMware side on SMB customers, those less complex customers that didn't have a broad adoption of a lot of the VMware products. The other thing, in addition to if anybody's had the fun experience of having a renewal in the last 2 years, you'll notice that there was a difficulty in doing business, and whether that was through the channel, through an existing partner, or you had to go find a new partner, the quoting mechanism that is being used now, there's a ton of manual approvals that happen on the VMware side, or Broadcom side rather, so it takes significant amount of time to get a quote, and these being now subscription models, if you get penalized for there's no more grace periods for not renewing on time. So there have been a lot of perceived challenges in doing business with VMware, if you're not one of those top 2,000 strategic customers that they pay the closest attention to. The other big thing that I think a lot of folks have noticed is the roadmap uncertainty, right? They got rid of a lot of products, everything from their their SD-WAN product to the VDI or desktop as a service solution that was the VMware EUC business unit, all became spun off as VMware Omnissa. That's now its own challenge that the customers that were using that have to deal with. And some of the other product bundles that got now wrapped in, and I have to purchase very specific package just to get maybe 1 or 2 features that I was using in what was previously a standalone product. Now I got to have the justify to my CFO why I'm spending so much on stuff that we're not going to use, and he's going to say, well, now you got to figure out a way to use it. When you may have redundant products in place. So that's created a lot of this roadmap uncertainty. What are they going to, what is Broadcom and VMware going to focus on going forward? And just from I think Chris would probably agree that a lot of the focus, it seems inevitably that this is going to move towards VCF, or their kind of top hybrid cloud offering, VMware Cloud Foundation. I suspect that's probably going to be one of the only packages that's going to be available in the next couple of years. So that brings a lot of strategic questions to the table, right? Now, what do I do? And Chris, if you want to go to the next slide, we can kind of talk a little bit more about that. And that's where, a lot of customers are finding themselves today, right? Like, I got to now shift from perpetual to subscription. So now there's that whole decision I have to make, and we're not saying that people didn't know this was coming. We all knew it was coming eventually, but the abruptness of this and this happening all in one, essentially one budget cycle for 99% of customers was extremely disruptive, right? And there was no time to really plan for it. You know, a lot of customers are not on versions that are currently supported. You know, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but they you know, had an end of life for, you know, vSphere 6.5, end of extended support for a lot of their perpetual products that was very abrupt as well. You know, we know that folks that were on vSphere 7 could not move to vSphere 8 because of, you know, just hardware and compatibility issues. You know, that's now become a very imminent question or issue they've got to resolve if they want to stay current. You know, there are customers who are going to say, I don't have time to do anything, so what am I going to do? You know, that unfortunately puts them in this position where they're going to have to go without, you know, VMware official support. That also means going without product updates and security patches and all that, and that leads to increased risk. You know, for a lot of customers, that's no longer an option if you are, you know, you have compliance requirements or you have cyber insurability requirements. You know, again, now that's something that everybody's got to look at, and you know, it's kind of crunch time for customers when that renewal comes up and we have to make a decision here. Chris, you have any other? You know, we can talk about the last two, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this too?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, you know, where their focus is, and, you know, really just going to the top tier. I mean, even going down, you know, the reduction in SKUs, you know, even so down to even the free tier hypervisor that, you know, it was a great on-ramp, that's now gone. And the licensing and subscription models really, you know, almost triple whammy, right? It's, you know, the price is going up. You're no longer have your perpetual licensing, but then the shift to that core count, because yeah, you mentioned the unused pieces that, you know, you're paying for, you're not using, and if you've heavily invested, you know, if you're a small shop but you've heavily invested in new high core count architectures, now all of a sudden, you know, you're potentially paying for CPU counts that you're not using, and not just paying for those, but now paying a premium on top of that. And so it's just a real, for those smaller shops that may have that setup, it is a really bad storm that hit all at once, you know, forcing them into an environment that is more expensive and less optimal for their workloads. So yeah, and the support as well. That's where we kind of were circle back, you know, what at the beginning, and you know where do we go from here? And I think we can get into the you know, transition options. That's immediately where, if you've seen all the news stories, you know, people going for the doors, and this is why that, you know, looking around it is, you're seeing that, you know, a lot of people aren't seeing any good options to continue with you know, VMware as a partner deployment option.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's kind of, I think that you really kind of reemphasize that point, that I think the market that's been hit the hardest and of their customer segment is anybody that's not enterprise or you know, strategic tier, because even commercial organizations, you know, we talked to many that were, you know, in the federal supply chain. We talked to many that are SLED, you know, that especially school districts, you know, where they have large VMware footprints. They're not you know, very complex, but they're large footprints nonetheless that have to stay supported. Being public entities too, you know, I mean, they don't have a lot of options of going unsupported when it's, you know, and you know, just kind of winging it on their own when it's tax dollars paying for it. You know, in this cybersecurity climate, you know, unfortunately, people have to do something. And maybe we can switch to the next slide here and kind of talk about some of those drivers. But you know, we talk about those business disruptions, and this kind of where again it hits home. And I think, you know, you guys at PMsquare probably see this a lot, but it's going to, these are kind of the most current updates for the things that we're going to start to see, you know, have that follow-on effect now in the next few months, especially into 2026. But, you know, they did completely, Broadcom did eliminate the registered partner tier. And in fact, the entire program, from what I hear now, the entire partner program is being discontinued. And I think it's restarting in the beginning of November. The one that they had previously that's in existence now it was very difficult to figure out if you were a partner, how do you advance to the next tier? You it does sound like there's going to be more disruption on that side as well, with more partners. I have a feeling they'll probably eventually be at a point where they have very, very few partners. And that's, something that customers now have to take into consideration, because, well in advance of any renewal. And if you have an M&A, who do I talk to now? Where do I get help? And that's, when the other big one too was customers that were on VCSP customers. So the cloud service providers, folks who were essentially renting VMware from a cloud service provider, those programs end at the end of this month. There's going to be a very few number of those left to service all those customers as well at the end of this month. I think there's a transition period of a few months or a quarter or something like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of partners are then losing revenue because they no longer have that CSP business. I heard one that was even asked to sell their business to another partner, and like, if we're at that point in this climate with VMware, this is not very business friendly.
Right.
And it just it doesn't leave a good taste in a lot of people's mouths. But we talked about the compliance risk. vSphere 7 went end of support October 2nd. I don't even believe they're offering extended support contracts for that since it was mostly perpetual licensing. So again, now anybody that did not transition to vSphere 8 is stuck in a rut where they're getting no more security updates. There was just 2 big 0 days that came out that VMware didn't disclose for like a year. So there's a lot of challenges around this, and if we look, go ahead, Chris. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean the compliance. I mean that it goes back to the previous call on the support and the areas that are going to be hardest. I mean, you brought up the small local governments, any SLED customers, any healthcare organizations that have to maintain this. I mean, it's not even, oh, we'll try to wing it here and just kind of get by and patch it. Those to stay in compliance is number one mission for these IT teams. And if we're not able to guarantee HIPAA or PCI compliance, you have to get off very fast. Puts them in a really tough spot.
Yeah, and what one of the I think we talked to there was a partner that had an end customer that was very concerned about that, because they were using, this kind of goes into the second from the bottom there, the product availability. There's been a lot of rumors, and because we can't substantiate anything here, but this is just based on previous business behavior from Broadcom, but it very much sounds like there's not going to be vSphere available as a standalone product in the standard or enterprise plus. There's only 4 essential SKUs available today, but it sounds like after next year, you're basically going to be limited to only buying the bundles, at the VCF, possibly vSphere Foundation, which was the one below it, I think, that didn't have some of the more advanced cloud features. But those were the 2 most expensive tiers as well. So now, hey, if I was just I'm going to kick the can down the road and renew for and they're not even doing 1-year deals from what I'm understanding. It's very difficult to get a 1-year renewal on subscription right now. It's a ton of exceptions to get a 1 year. You have to get a 3-year. So essentially, everybody's now in this position where they got to figure out, in the next 3 years, what am I going to do? We already know that there's cost increases. We know there's probably inevitably more changes coming down the road. They're going to make doing business that much more challenging, unless I have, some direct line to Hock Tan's approval at Broadcom. So there we're left, facing these disruptions. I know a lot of you are probably in this boat. So the big question, if we want to skip to the next section here, is what do we do? What are our options? So if we kind of, and these should really not be a giant surprise to anybody. I think a lot of folks have been probably exploring these to some level, maybe not in depth and in detail, but, a lot of I guess, and that's the fortunate thing, right? Is a lot of companies have, being in 2025 here, a lot of companies have started to look at aging applications that were just limited to legacy architecture that was on the basic hypervisor, maybe not running that officially in the data center. Maybe you're trying to get out of the data center business or downsize your data center footprint for, cost efficiency. But this is just another one of those incentives to do that. And it basically puts people in 3 different sort of buckets, right? You can put things on another hypervisor. So this has been an area of the market that's really been spinning up. There's Proxmox, which is kind of the, I guess, the open source edition. That's they do provide some level of support, but it's not 100% enterprise grade from what I understand today, but it is a very viable technical solution. SUSE has a Rancher virtualization option. HPE just came out with their VM Essentials. And then you can do, or you could move to something like hyper-converged infrastructure like Nutanix or Scale. It's a new ecosystem, and today that is you are kind of limited on what hardware they support today, but I expect that'll greatly expand in the future because they too are aggressively seeing this as an opportunity to offer something different to customers. They're going to really be looking at alternatives for on-premise. Containerization is another one, right? Where people are just looking at, well, this app's been sitting on the shelf for 10 years. Maybe it is time to modernize. Maybe this is now the catalyst to get it modernized, and that's a very viable solution, right? Whether it's deciding on a containerization strategy and then modernizing those apps to run in Kubernetes or Docker or whatever, and then you can run them wherever you want. Do you want to run them, on-prem? Do you want to run them in the cloud? Do you want to run them in both? That's certainly a solution that many customers are going to look at as well. Chris, you want to take the last one there?
Yep. And then obviously, the hyperscaler option going to one of the large public clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP, OCI, where with these, a lot of this will be all these providers have different tools, and we'll get into some of the options here on how to help expedite this. But this is where you can either move natively to one of their VM options, such as AWS EC2. GCP does have the option to have a VMware engine that they will run and manage for you. So there are some options there to get up running in these clouds. And I think at the bottom, the reality one or more. And I know when we talk with clients, what we try to help convey is that it isn't a one size fits all. And you may have dozens, hundreds of workloads that need to be moved. Most of our clients, I'm seeing this too, are using a blend of this. Most have a hybrid approach to infrastructure today, taking advantage of the scale within the public clouds where it makes sense, and then staying on premise where they feel that is most optimal. And whether you're looking to go to containerize or just do straight lifts and shifts, typically when we go through and we'll talk through our methodology, we're going to use the right tool for the right job, and working through that in a really methodical way.
Yeah, I would say this is where partners like PMsquare, this is where the customers should lean very heavily on that expertise that Chris and John and their team bring to the table, because they've done this. They're out there doing this today. They see what other customers like, what you may be doing, today. They see what other customers are doing in your same field, in your same, market segment, and they're, they have a whole library and bench of experience that they can bring to the table to do this. And Chris will go through some of the, how they do that. But just want to mention one thing. There is that unsaid, unspoken fourth option, just to do nothing and do business as usual. But I highly advise against that. For all the reasons we've mentioned before. I just see too many customers taking that approach and saying, well, maybe we can just renew and kick the can down the road. This is something you're going to have to figure out something, whether it's staying on VMware and just absorbing the ecosystem and dealing with the change. It's all about risk, right, and what you're going to tolerate. But this, if anything, this is the one excellent opportunity for customers of any size and any complexity to finally reevaluate their application stack and their estate and figure out, is this really the best for us today? And Chris will go into how they do that, and they're very prescribed policy for that.
So we'll get into that in our migration approach. That leads well into that. So first, obviously, we want to start with the migration evaluation and help you to do some TCO or ROI modeling so you can understand. We talked about the pricing licensing changes within VMware. We want to confirm and show that the delta of the effort for doing this kind of a large migration is going to be worth it in the end. And based on the price increases that we've been seeing, I definitely think it will be. From there, we go with a phased approach. You're going from assess, to pilot, migrate, and then optimize. I mentioned that, we do this responsibly. This is what I was just alluding to earlier. It's not going to be a big bang approach. We want to do it in a controlled way. And this is actually what we see with a lot of these workloads, especially legacy ones. Actually, I was just talking with a customer just last week where we're going through an assessment to do a cloud migration. And they know they have some applications that have been running and for in WebSphere that have been running for 15, 20 years. No one's touched them. They still kind of need them. They don't want to, they haven't wanted to, it's not been so, such a big priority that they wanted to devote resources and money to it to do it. It's working enough. But now this is the motivating factor to actually start and look holistically at their entire application suite and what to do with it. And it's dovetailing really nicely, obviously, with everything around Gen AI today and the code assist tools. AWS, for example, has their transform tool that looks to help migrate these workloads using Gen AI to reduce the time, and specifically helps target VMware migrations and being able to do a lot of the network translation that used to take up so much time. You're translating network rules and switches into the AWS equivalent components would take a bulk of the time, and using Gen AI can expedite this. And we've seen, at least conversations that I've had with clients, them recognizing the value that Gen AI can bring around migrating legacy code bases to newer platforms and taking advantage of that, and leaning into it, something that they wouldn't have done before, but being able to use the efficiencies of Gen AI to expedite that migration. It can get them not just on a newer code base, but can, we mentioned before, looking to completely refactor it, looking to get on a more modern microservices architecture and get on a firm foundation moving forward. These are big projects, and I understand why clients in the past haven't wanted to take them on, because it's a significant effort. But now with the combination of obviously all the VMware changes, the efficiencies that Gen AI can bring to this, it's the time to do it and really take advantage of the environment that a lot of clients are finding themselves in. So how we will go about this, so with the migration phase, we'll do a full environment workload review. And at the end of that, you'll have a document and a plan that we will present, and you'll be able to take internally, be able to work with that. And really with the goal of that document is going to be that clear roadmap with milestones of what the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months can look like for this migration, to make sure that you have a clear vision to get off this. I know we're going to, if you've seen that, a lot of this is, it's hard to know where to start. It's hard to know what the future will look like. Everyone's been so entrenched with VMware for so long, as it's been a great stable platform. But what's that future look like for these applications and migrating them to a new platform? And so that's where our evaluation and road mapping will help paint that picture, and so you can have a clear vision for what that looks like. And obviously, you can reach out to us at PMsquare, visit our website, schedule evaluation. We'd be happy to get that coordinated. And when we do that, we'll use some of those automated tools we talked about. We leverage the efficiency of Gen AI to go through and run those automated discovery processes to be able to get a clear visualization of what that footprint currently looks like, to be able to give you a holistic assessment of what that is. And with that, I think we are ready for some Q&A if we have any in the chat.